This is video number 3 of the series concerning paper 1, textual analysis preparation for IB English A. We've been looking at the Guardian newspaper extract. If you've already seen video number 1, then you know that concerns level 1 responses. Video number 2 concerns level 2 responses, and video number 3 is going to address level 3 responses. So, again, it's the same article we've been looking at. And just to review really quickly, level 1 response, you should be identifying author, title, source, and date. Now, for the sake of this exercise, you don't really need to identify those bits of information, but ultimately, for a paper 1 exam, that information must be included in your introduction paragraph. So I'm sort of just sneaking that in there in this exercise to develop good habits anyways. But really, for the sake of this exercise, the main purpose is to get you to identify these pieces of information and organize the observations that you make when doing a close reading and textual analysis. So if you are going to identify the title, author, source, and date, just know that it is a level 1 analysis, as well as the topic and providing a summary of the main ideas. And that should be done in 3 to 6 sentences. Going down to level 2, describe what the text does, identify aspects of the presentation, explain how the topic and content are presented, explain the use of formal stylistic devices and the effect on readers. Can't emphasize enough that you must not list. No lists. You cannot list rhetorical devices. You cannot go and memorize the glossary of rhetorical device dictionary or book and then just list them out in a paper. That's not acceptable. You identify them and you go a step further and try to explain the effects of those devices on the audience, on the readers. Now, for level 3, interpretation. This is what this video will focus on. Analyze what the text means. Assert an overall meaning. So here you're looking for underlying meaning of the text. This is where you're almost going to be trying to make an inference. And areas that you can make an inference about are going to be things concerning perhaps the values, what values are being promoted, or if you can identify any bias you can infer from the text, or perhaps some grand lesson. So is there anything about the topic or content that leads you to a conclusion that the writer is trying to promote a set of values, or reveals a particular bias, or there's some lesson concerning humanity or society, or something trying to change behavior that's not being stated explicitly, but you have to infer from the details. For a level 3 response, you'll still be expected to cite and reference the text in order to provide evidence, all right, for your assertions. Provide evidence for your inference. Your inferences must be based on the text. That means you should also be focusing on the language usage and particular words. So you should even be quoting the text at certain stages. So we can see from this article, from already going through a level 1 and level 2, that the topic concerns accents, and that there are two sides to this debate. There's the camp that believes that you should not have to change your accent, and then there's a group that believes you should have to change your accent. In providing these two examples, the author is attempting to illustrate how varied and complicated this topic is. Therefore, you can understand that there's no yes or no answer. This is not a black and white issue. There's a lot of gray area concerning this topic. By discussing both an academic and a professional experience, as well as social, the author is trying to illustrate how significant this topic is. But you can also take one step further in this interpretation and say that since this is professional, academic, and social, this all relates to one's goals in life, and that the author is giving a commentary on how you speak affects your achievements and successes in life, or achieving your goals in life, and how it can bring about failure or it can bring about success. You will notice in the interpretation, you do not have to strictly say Oxford or Guardian interview, nor do you have to identify that what type of accent that the author has. Furthermore, the author talks about accusations of inauthenticity. What does it mean to be inauthentic? What does it mean to be accused of inauthentic, or being found guilty of being inauthentic? That means you're not being genuine. In a sense, that means you're not being real. That means you're fake, false, counterfeit, and that relates to being trustworthy or untrustworthy. So this word inauthenticity actually reveals the values within society that are used to judge people. The author then goes on to reflect about her experiences, not only in England, but her experiences abroad as well, to illustrate just how widespread this phenomenon is, this set of values of judging people's authenticity based on how they speak. The heart of the author's concern is revealed by the word mocked and the word judged. So the real lesson to take away from this article is that people should not be mocked or judged or insulted or devalued or demoralized based on how they speak, and one should not feel compelled to alter how they speak for fear of being judged negatively. So an interpretation would be that this author criticizes the values in society that allow people to be judged based on such a superficial factor such as how you pronounce your words. Of course, this is not the only interpretation that can be derived from this text. This is one of many. And there are also many approaches you can take to articulate your findings. So you can take a funnel approach, or you can take the inverse funnel approach. In the funnel approach, you're going to start with your interpretation at the beginning of your paragraph, followed by supporting details and quotes and extracts from the text to support your interpretation. You lead with that. In an inverse funnel, you start by sort of your citation and quotes and reference of the text and specific details and that you've identified in the text, and then you make your interpretation once you consider all of the evidence. You compile the evidence first, and then you state your conclusion. Alternatively, you can sort of make your conclusion and then try to go through the text to justify it. So if you take a look at this slide, there's 4 different colors, just to provide an example of the 4 different ways you can articulate your interpretation. Not all of these are good. Some are good, some are bad. I'll leave it to your judgment to decide which are which. There are some words that are used in order to introduce your interpretation. Please note that you do not use the word I, such as I personally believe that the author is trying to say ... That would be incorrect. Some of these responses actually make better reference of the text than others. So use your judgment to decide which is which. Furthermore, some of these responses, or perhaps one, actually talks about values, bias, or some grand lesson that the text is trying to teach or reveal. Which of these responses actually accomplishes that and which does not? And who's to say that your essay, when doing a paper 1 textual analysis, cannot include all of these? Sure, you can. Just make sure that they are defended by providing evidence from the text. That concludes video number 3 of 3 of this series. There will be more articles with paper 1 textual analysis exercises to follow. So stay tuned. If you have any questions, email me with your questions. Or if you want me to focus on another topic in a future video, also let me know.